don't cosplay trauma. Dressing up as someone incarcerated, enslaved, or a survivor of war is unacceptable in the—
I'm sorry. Who the elected you, God Queen of Halloween costumes, with the ability to decide what's acceptable for people to dress up as and not?
Pronoun of the day is slugs.
And now it's time for Brad vs. TikTok, my daily segment where I take on the craziest ideas from the Clock app. Today, this woke white savior is here to educate us about how to avoid being offensive and problematic on Halloween.
My birthday's on Halloween, and I'm also incredibly woke, which makes me uniquely equipped to tell you how to Halloween respectfully. Number 1, don't do blackface.
Okay, I think because of the uniquely nasty history of blackface, like putting on makeup to look like a black person, people probably should steer clear of that one. But she did not stop there.
Number 2, don't try to look like another race or ethnicity. Whether you're dressing as a person or character, don't change your skin tone or facial features. This includes darkening your skin using prosthetic facial features or manipulating your eye or nose shape. You can learn more about colorism and featureism from Dr. Sarah L. Webb at Colorism Healing.
Isn't making yourself look like the person you're trying to be for Halloween kind of the point of a costume or dressing up? But no, if you wear makeup or change your facial appearance, somebody somewhere will be deeply harmed and affected by that somehow. And of course, what would Halloween woke scolding be without mentions of cultural appropriation?
Number 3, avoid cultural appropriation. This one's easy. If the outfit is a representation of a culture that you're not a part of, avoid it, especially if it's just a racist interpretation of another culture. This includes dressing as a stereotype, religious symbols, or traditional regalia. Remember, culture is not a costume.
It can be though, and culture is literally meant to be shared and intermixed, and this idea that people need to stay in their lane and only do or appear as or present as or dress up as or engage with the music or art or culture of the thing they are ethnically, their DNA says they date back to, is actually close-minded and regressive, not progressive. Now, obviously, there's a difference between doing like a really offensive caricature of another race or culture, though, I mean, even then, it's a freaking costume. It's not the end of the world, but I can see why you would say, like, don't do that. But just don't dress up as anything from another culture is actually just really reductionist and backwards thinking. That's the whole point of dressing up, is being something you're not. And we should want people to celebrate each other's cultures and intermix and intermingle, not silo off by racial group and identity in the name of wokeness or being progressive. That's actually the opposite of that.
Number 4, don't be ableist. Disabilities are not costumes. Number 5, don't mock facial differences. Yes, even if you're mimicking a popular character. Wearing prosthetics, mimicking scars, or using eye patches to make your costume scarier is extremely messed up when you consider that there are a wide array of people who have facial differences. Facial differences are not a costume. You can learn more by going to faceequalityinternational.org.
Bruh. So, doing the Harry Potter scar is now a hate crime, apparently. Dressing up as Captain Hook and putting on an eye patch somehow hurts disabled people. Maybe I'm the crazy one, but I imagine that a lot of disabled people are actually remarkably resilient individuals, not weak little snowflakes who need to be sheltered from somebody somewhere wearing a costume that resembles them in any way. And I think the whole premise of this, that imitating something is a form of mockery inherently, is just like not true. Anyway.
Number 6, don't cosplay trauma. Dressing up as someone incarcerated, enslaved, or a survivor of war is unacceptable, and the scariest thing about it is the lack of empathy required to do it.
I'm sorry. Who the fuck elected you, God Queen of Halloween costumes, with the ability to decide what's acceptable for people to dress up as and not? If somebody wants to dress up as a prisoner, so be it. That's not mocking someone else's trauma. What? Also, I think most prisoners probably have bigger problems out there than somebody wearing an orange jumpsuit on Halloween and trick-or-treating. But I'm apparently just a heartless person with no empathy. Or, just a thought, maybe you're a hypersensitive person who hates fun and wants to ruin an innocent holiday with all this fake made-up nonsense and hysterical rules. Ugh. There's only a little bit of this left, thank God.
If you want to Halloween respectfully, you have to be respectful. But I guess you'd have to want to be respectful too. Get creative instead of playing into tired racist tropes and people's real trauma. But I'm not gonna stop you. Just don't be surprised when you get canceled on November 1st.
Smarter in seconds.
Apparently she calls her little series Smarter in Seconds, but I feel like I just got dumber in minutes. That has to be the most fun-killing, soul-crushing, joy-destroying take on Halloween that I've ever seen. I think the whole thing is just nonsense, and that people should, have a little common sense. Don't do anything too crazy, be somewhat respectful, but people can dress up as things that they are not, and not every imitation of something is a mockery of it. And a costume, at the end of the day, is not that big a deal. It is not a trauma. It is not a microaggression. It is not a hate crime. It's not an act of discrimination. It's a freaking costume. These people need to get a grip and stop infantilizing minorities or members of different groups as if they're so fragile and need to be protected from somebody somewhere trick-or-treating in a way that might hurt their feelings if they ever even knew about it, which they probably never would unless people like this made this such a big freaking deal on the internet. Now, I did a little digging into this woman and her other content, and I think some of what she's doing here may be projection or her trying to make up to the woke people for the fact that she herself has apparently worn costumes in the past that she considers problematic, although they're actually not at all. Let's take a listen to this weird struggle session video where she explains how problematic she was by dressing up as a blind character once or something.
So even though I'm the smarter in seconds lady, I too can be problematic. I just don't talk about it because who'd want to tell on themselves? But when one of y'all asked this question, it made me think and want to share a time that I was problematic. One of like 5 times I can count on my hand, but still. Back in 2019, I dressed as Geordi LaForge from Star Trek The Next Generation with this iconic cosplay. LeVar Burton even said it was one of the best cosplays he'd ever seen. Now, canonically in Star Trek The Next Generation, Geordi LaForge is blind and actually based on a disabled fan of the show. As you can see, I wore the visor, and that's okay because it's not a real life accessibility device. What I shouldn't have done, however, was wear gray eye contacts to make myself look blind. That's cringe and not okay. Now, it wasn't the fact that I was wearing eye contacts. You can wear eye contacts of any eye color you want. It was the fact that I was using eye contacts to mimic a disability. That's the problem. That's ableist. Even though that is accurate to the character, it's still problematic. One, it's not how most blind folks' eyes actually even look, and it's also turning blindness into a prop for my costume, which isn't okay. As I said previously, don't be ableist. Disabilities are not costumes. So remember, when it comes to Halloweening respectfully or cosplaying respectfully, if it's related to somebody's inherent trait, whether that's a disability, race, ethnicity, size, etc., don't try to use it as a prop for your costume. The fact is that my cosplay would have been just as cool if I just wore the visor and didn't use the eye contacts. It's definitely a little awkward and embarrassing to admit that I too made a mistake, but I think it's also incredibly important to show you that once you know better, you can do better.
Bruh, she's like flagellating herself with this weird apology cult video, like to the woke people, like, please, I'm better now. But like, she literally didn't do anything wrong. She wore a visor and eye contacts to resemble the character that she was dressing up as, which was blind and had that color of eyes. So she wasn't mimicking a disability to make fun of it or make fun of disabled people. She was trying to look like the fictional character she was dressing up as for Halloween in a way that was like honoring the character. Or maybe I think this was cosplaying, so not even on Halloween, like as in this person is so cool, I want to look like them. There was nothing degrading or negative about it. You've just declared yourself problematic and unintentionally exposed how ridiculous your whole endeavor here is by this ridiculous attempt to apologize for something where you did nothing wrong. She's like, oh, this is ableist to do anything that's associated, to mimic anything associated with a trait about somebody. Why? Why is it inherently hateful or negative or discriminatory? It could be done in a hateful way, but it certainly doesn't have to be. And I think even in the majority of cases, isn't done that way. People are dressing up as something because they want to look like that thing, most of the time because they think it's cool, not because they think it's bad or lame or gross or weird. And at the end of the day, we're just talking about freaking costumes. It's really not that big a deal. And people like this need to get a grip and stop going on the internet trying to ruin everybody else's fun time. What do you guys think of this video? Do you agree with the dumber in minutes lady? Let me know in the comments below, and do hit that like button to reward my suffering through this absolute stupidity.